All right, guys, I've got Joe Nowicki on today. Joe is an experienced archer in Africa, and he works for Africa Bowhunting. And we dive deep into the concept of going to South Africa just to hunt with archery equipment. This is something that I'm planning on doing, so I figured why not take you guys along? You can listen to my motivations. You can listen to the questions that I have for Joe. We dive into it super deep. I think it's an awesome opportunity out there, and I look forward to it. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Joe, awesome to have you, man. We've been trading messages on Instagram, and I had Jimmy on the podcast, and we talked a little bit about Africa, and it's becoming more and more intriguing to me. Like, I'm getting to the point where it's pretty clear I got to make a trip, but I would say that in the States, at least at the personal level, I'm probably like 60% a rifle hunter, 40% an archer. But I feel like if I go to Africa, I got to do the bow thing. And I want to get into that with you. And that's pretty much why I'm having you on, man. Because I wanna get into the whole archery world in South Africa. To me, there's like a natural reason why I want to do that. But I just want to dive deep in it. So first things first, man, just tell the audience kind of your background in Africa, and we'll go from there, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Cliff. So I've been hunting real consistently. I've been pretty ate up with big game since kind of my senior year at college. I grew up in Colorado, actually, and so was surrounded by, elk and mule deer and whatever, going to Rocky Mountain National Park, seeing them all. It just doesn't really work out when you're a kid and you're in sports and whatnot.
Sure.
But got super into big game hunting later on and really picked up the bow as a way to extend the season, right, and get out there earlier. And I was doing all public land, so kind of grinding it out and, man, getting those extra few weeks on the front end where I was in Florida at the time was a game changer, right?
Sure.
So picked up the bow, and then, even as soon as I started doing, more bigger kind of dedicated things, and it really was kind of around my school and work and fishing schedule. I really just gravitated towards the bow more and more. And, now at this point, when I put in for whatever, every draw tag, everything, it's
Sure.
all archery, right? That's just kind of like what gets me going now. Right. And I've been fortunate to have a whole bunch of different opportunities to do that. Specifically, I had never really been on a guided hunt, and I went to Dallas Safari Club. I live in Texas now. I went to the Dallas show, which is, you're a kid in a candy store. You need to schedule 2 days just to walk around like
God. Oh yeah, dude, those places are dangerous.
Oh, out of control. And
yeah.
So I had originally gone there thinking I was gonna look for an Alaska hunt, right? And I was like, all right, let me put this on the calendar and figure out, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, now that I'm pretty well into my career, what I need to be putting away, and talk to some people. And I talked to folks, and Alaska still sounds super tempting and really awesome, but going around, I just stumbled into a couple different guys talking about Africa, and I was like, man, this is something that's way more accessible, and it's going to be a lot more bow hunter friendly with a few of these, specific guys I'm talking to. And that kind of got me started looking into that. And then I ended up booking for that year and went over, and I've been fortunate to be back a few times here, and, with a couple different outfitters. And really, so all archery for me, I've been with people who are rifle hunting, but for the most part, I was just so stoked to get over there and find a place that, could really have the wealth of opportunities that you need to get a lot of reps in on, on specific stuff. So
Sure.
We'll kind of dive into that a little more, but that's kind of how I first ended up over there.
Yeah, I got you. And it's interesting because to me, dude, you're kind of an anomaly because you've gone over there archery specific the whole time. Like I know guys that, go over and they may shoot a few things with their bow or whatever, and then they're rifle hunting a little bit. But, it seems to be that it's always been tilted, at least from what I've experienced with folks, talking to folks, towards the rifle side of things. I'm making a giant assumption that part of that's cultural, like historically, just the culture of hunting there. Am I wrong, man, or why is that?
No, you're really not. So you got a few things coming together. One, just your average guy. Gross assumptions here, right? But your average guy who's like super ate up with hunting, kind of in his younger ages, has like a higher likelihood to be that like gung ho archery guy.
For sure.
And that's me right now, right? And who knows, maybe I'll grow out of it. I also talk to a lot of guys who are kind of at the age where by the time, maybe their kids are grown and they they got a little jingle in the pocket and they can, let alone be retired or whatever, can travel. uh, those guys are not really the ones who are going to be out there pulling 70 or 75 pounds and flinging 100 arrows a day, right? So
Sure.
there's an ease of that. There's also an ease with the guns where, you know, people don't necessarily talk about this a ton. I know Jimmy mentioned it, but a lot of guys are going over there and they're not bringing a gun with them, right? Just to get around the kind of the hassle of it. And I mean, I don't bring a gun, right? I pack a bow, but still being able to go over there and you can just grab someone's gun and be like, all right, we're hunting, right?
Yeah, go hunting.
You know, 5 shots at the range. Okay, I get how it works, and you're off to the races. So the other thing with the bow is that traditionally, you know, the way a lot of your standard outfitters are set up, yeah, they're making a little money on your daily rates and whatnot, but for the most part, they're really, you know, paying their bills based on trophy fees, right? And so you're going to have scenarios where, man, if we can get this guy to shoot 20 animals in a week, which sounds insane, I assure you it happens every single week of hunting season over there.
Sure.
You know, and with the gun, you're doing what's called Baki hunting a little bit. Baki is what they call their like tricked out Toyota Hiluxes, right?
Oh, okay.
And they've got kind of like padded racks, and there's a lot of outfits that are, you know, in what I'm not passing judgment. It's just a type of hunting that they do where, you know, you're riding, you see something, okay, let's stop, turn it off, let it get out there, wait for it to stop at 200, and you know, you've got sandbags and boom plop, right? So there's definitely some of that. I also think that first trip over, people maybe don't want to like fool around too much. You know, you're going into an unknown, and I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't, you know, crapping myself at full draw on animals here and there, you know, just all over sometimes. Yeah. And so being able to kind of minimize some of those variables, or what if something happens to my bow and shipping, whatever. And if you haven't really talked to someone who's bow hunted over there, which again, there's a lot of reasons, just older folks and wives are hunting a lot of times, et cetera, it can kind of be intimidating to try to go into that. So I guess just specifically, since we haven't mentioned it yet, I work kind of as a U.S. representative now for African Bowhunting Adventures, which is kind of where I ended up after, you know, hunting with a few, talking with a few, whatever. Went over just completely as a client and became real good friends with the outfitter over there. Have hosted him, hunted with him in the U.S. as well a few times, and we just really hit it off. And so being able to, you know, be on the U.S. time zones and be accessible, right? I'm not in the bush 24/7. It kind of gives me the opportunity to talk about this and share some of that. So that specifically being said, that kind of outfitter that I represent, for lack of a better term, is super archery focused, right? So a lot of kind of my understanding, and especially once we get into the nuanced stuff, is kind of from an archery perspective. Of course, you know, there's things that a rifle makes more sense, or, you know, you got one from follow-up shots, whatever. But, you know, generally speaking, I'm largely informed from the bow hunting position on Africa.
Yeah, which is a unique angle. And dude, the thing that's funny about it, I think because there's been this, dude, there's totally been a generational shift, even in the States, man, like with archery. You know, my father was an outfitter, and his perspective of archery is like, you shouldn't even allow people to come hunt with you with a bow, because it's just like a pain in the ass. You know, that's like the old school mentality of outfitting in the States. So I can only imagine there, where it's a little bit even younger, you know.
Right.
And what's crazy is I don't think that people, particularly like the new generational shift of like younger guys, or a lot of like most of your late onset hunters, you know, guys that didn't grow up hunting, they almost all start in archery. So though I think a lot of that market and that audience, they don't understand that stigma on the guided side, even in the States, totally still exists. You know what I mean? It totally still exists, and there's a lot of value in finding the outfits that are focused on archery. Like a good example in the States, man. I've guided a few mountain goat hunts, I've guided a bunch of mountain goat hunts, but a few archery hunts, and it's actually a pretty good species for that, because you know, there's like the terrain dynamic, but I got where I would communicate with a lot of guys that wanted to hunt them with archery equipment, or they shot one with me, and then maybe they shot one with a rifle, now they wanted to shoot with a bow, and so the natural place to go a lot of times is British Columbia. The thing about it is, like British Columbia, there's one outfitter that you want to go with if you want to kill a billy with a bow. the others might say it's okay, but they're not. What they want to do is they want to get you up there and then convince you to shoot one with a rifle.
Yeah, and hand you a 300 Win Mag. And, you know, that 100%, like, so Africa, that Americans kind of sometimes think of Africa as like, you know, I live in Texas right now. There's a lot of people who say like hunting in Africa, hunting in Texas. Those are similar in there. We're talking about like a continent, right? So tons of different opportunities, tons of different outfitters, right? And the first one I went with billed themselves as a archery one. They're well known for bow hunts and a lot of videos of bow hunting, stuff like that. And I got there, and that PH I was first with, and fantastic hunter. I'll just throw that out there.
Sure.
But he was like, yeah, I really don't care that much about trophies. You know, when I hunt, I try to go on call hunts. I just like stacking bodies. And I think bows are like kind of dumb, right? You know, and so I was like, wait, what? You know? And then we're in camp, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, all right, half the guys here are hunting with a gun. And then more people came in who were gun hunting too. And I had a fine hunt, but you do have like a little bit of a difference in, you know, kind of like everybody, and Jimmy mentioned this a little bit, you know, there's guys at the show, there's guys here, there, whatever, who are just representing and trying to get you to sign on the dotted line, right? And, you know, I'd done a lot of research, and we 100% were successful with bows. They were set up well for it. But, you know, you talk to their lady in the front office or whatever, and she's like, yeah, we can do that, and they give you a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And I start talking to the guy. I'm like, hey, I'd love to get some stocking in. I'd love to do this. And he goes, that's pretty much going to be impossible. And I said, okay, well, what about this? He goes, that's pretty much going to be impossible. And I was like, really? That's like, I don't know. Like, I just got here. I'm figuring it out. Like, you don't even know how capable I am, you know, whatever. I did end up taking one animal spot and stock that trip, which he was kind of surprised by. But, like, generally speaking, when you go with a archery specific guy, you know, opportunity to plug our group. But our main guide and outfitter and owner is Donnie, and you'll hear me refer to him a few times, but so I've been very fortunate. I've killed almost 100 animals, big game with my bow. He's looking for like number 400 right now.
Yeah,
right?
I got you.
So he's been out there, he's getting the reps, and he just knows what it takes. And there's stuff.
By the way, dude, he's got some good videos on your guy. Are they all on? Dude, I just like hit the search engine on YouTube. Mm-hmm. What are they on, man?
I think his YouTube channel is called Donnie Heel African Bowhunting Adventures. Or maybe it's
how do you spell his last name?
Geel.
Okay.
So
the videos are great, dude.
Oh yeah, he's just a freak about, you know, the cameras and all that. And
sure,
you know, it is easier to shoot video, you know, when you're blind hunting versus spot and stock, right? So, you know, it kind of gives like a disproportionate sense of blind hunting, which is still a blast, right? And it's cool sitting there and being surrounded by all this game and whatnot. But getting into that, you know, he's over there really focused on this. And to pick on your buddy Jimmy a little bit here, I listened to that podcast you did with him, and there were 2 species in there that he said it's basically impossible to spot and stock with a bow. On my last trip over there, I got both of them on foot with a bow, and I've got on video to prove it, right? So like,
nice, dude. Send me the links. I'll send them to Jimmy just to bust his balls a little bit.
I bet he'll appreciate that. Yeah, he'll love me. But you know, just generally speaking, it's a totally different concept, right? And there's a lot of folks you can talk to at the shows or email, and if you bring up bow hunting at the first step, they kind of know how to talk to you, right? And they'll pitch you on it. And a lot of them are running, you know, they'll have a blind on a water hole, but the big property is being rifle hunted a lot of times, right?
Sure.
And so, yeah, good luck spotting stalking a zebra, right? That's getting blasted at from 300 yards for 6 months. And then like you show up, right? With your Hoyt or whatever. It's like, good luck, man. Right. But having these areas where we're able to kind of go and say, hey, this is going to be bow hunting only. And we're going to really focus on that, keeping them chill. And then also, you know, not just being tied to, you know, sitting over maybe, you know, an alfalfa bale and water, which is cool, right? Like I have no problem shooting stuff out of blinds and tree stands. And it's super fun. But having those opportunities is kind of what sets us apart from these guys who are running, you know, 90% rifle hunters. And then if you're there with the bow and you get that mentality, that's kind of what Jimmy said, which is, and it's not bad advice for folks, but hey, if you really want to do this bow thing, and you know, especially if you want to spot and stock, like you need to be willing to shoot whatever. And sure, right, but there are other options, right? And that's kind of where we come in. And it's, hey, if properties are managed right and landowners are compensated correctly and understand the value of not having guns going off every 30 minutes, like this place can be an absolute mecca for bow hunting.
Cliff's Hunter, I created this knife from iteration in the field. It has been modified and perfected for the backcountry use case. It is my belief that in terms of all-around knives, this is the last knife that an elk hunter, mule deer hunter, sheep hunter, goat hunter will need to buy. Go check it out on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. In the top right, click shop, then Cliff's Hunter. All the details are there. Dude, I have a question on that, and it may only be interesting to me, but how does so traditional like private land outfitting in the U.S., most you see very few leases where there's more than one operator. And so to me, it's at least what I've heard is that's not always the case in Africa. What is that dynamic like?
Yeah, this is a super interesting thing, and I'm gonna answer your question by kind of backing up a level. So
yeah,
specifically what we're talking about in this conversation is South Africa, and chunks of Namibia are also like this. People may have heard stories, or if you've read the Horn of the Hunter or whatever, that's kind of a different style. That's concessions. That's technically government land. It's closer to a national forest lease, for lack of a better term.
I'm going to stop you. We're going to get back to the question. But on that, I'm curious, dude. Like, what percentage of Africa hunting is that style of hunting? Is it like less than 10% of what's actually going on?
Ooh, well, it depends on what you say by, right? So if you say by number of hunters, or number of animals killed, or number of hunter days spent, I don't know. It's in South Africa specifically, you're almost all private land, right? There's one or two areas like on the border of Kruger that are very unique exceptions. Sure. And then there's also some public stuff for the guys who live there. But that's super limited, and that's not relevant at all to Americans.
I got you.
Namibia, a big chunk of it is private like this, and then there's a little bit of concession stuff. The other ones are now, some of them are moving more towards this model. So like Mozambique, Botswana, from what I understand, they're getting to be a few like big private areas. But a lot of them, Mozambique is real famous for like having the kutatas, which I'm probably way too, granular right now. But these are big chunked off areas. And so one operator is running Kutata 11's a really well-known one. And that area is, 100% wild. It's going to be only touched by those folks, and they're going to be, employing the anti-poachers. They're going to be out there patrolling, making sure there's not, people are doing slash and burn agriculture, stuff like that. And then you get up into like Tanzania, Uganda, Ethiopia, stuff like that, all going to be concession based for the most part, right? And that's basically, once you get out of South Africa, that's probably what you're looking at. In SA, though, you're looking more at private land. So, and that kind of gets, go ahead.
Well, and just to finish off that thought, Joey, like that's in general, those are more like they're a different adventure for sure. Like, I mean, you described it, I'm like, oh, dude, that'd be fun. And I've read like all the books,
Oh yeah.
So I envision myself like, oh, that'd be so cool to go on like a 30-day, safari in one of these wild places, and I can see that. But I can also see the flip side of it is it's my feeling, like, what's the dynamic there? More expensive, more logistics, potentially more dangerous. Like, what does that look like?
Definitely all of those. It's expensive in a different way though. So if you think about, South Africa's fairly easy to get to. I can fly a round trip out of Houston or Dallas, $1,200, and I land at an airport where they pick me up, and we can be hunting in 3 hours, right? You're going to be doing some hopping, in some very small plains or long bumpy roads, whatever, to get into some of these other ones. The big thing though is if you're in South Africa, you can come hunt with us for a week, right? Basically all inclusive, all your daily rates, you'll be under a few $1,000, right? Like $3,000 will basically get you 7 hunting days, right?
Gotcha.
Now, if you're looking at something further out, and I mean, that's kind of funny money, right? Because a lot of times it's in a package and whatnot, but like a solid daily rate is like $400 per person per day. If you're doing 2-on-1, you can get in like the $300, $350 range. Once you get to these other ones, the cost of doing business in like truly the bush, and I'm not talking like, oh, I'm in the middle of the, the whatever, San Juan Wilderness or like something like that. I'm talking like we are so far, you know, you'd be 3 days of travel from a piece of pavement, right? And so the cost of just like keeping people alive and running everything and building the camp for hunting season stuff is a lot higher. So what you have is way higher like daily rates, but your trophy fees are a lot lower. That said, everything's still going to be more expensive because in all these other countries, generally, you're going to be hunting dangerous game, right? And those dangerous game ones, yes, your daily rates go up because a lot of times you have multiple PHs, multiple trackers, et cetera, you know, extra backup guns. You might have bait if you're hunting lion or leopard or whatever. But then on top of that, you know, I mean, the trophy fees on a lot of that stuff are a lot higher. That said, if you compare like Cape Buffalo and SA versus, you know, basically the marginal increase in cost to shoot another Cape Buffalo in Zambia, it's like half as expensive to shoot that one in Zambia or whatever.
Yeah.
But you also paid whatever, 15 grand in daily rates, right? So those places get a lot more expensive. And, you know, Tanzania is kind of held. You said you read some of the books. I mean, that's like the spot for a lot of guys. Demand, sure, but also just the cost of doing business in those areas.
A lot
really
of it's
tight
just
quotas.
Yeah, just a reflection of the cost structure.
Right. Just like, you know, if you wanted to go to the most rural place in the Alaska range or whatever, like you're going to spend a lot of money, even if you said, hey, I only want to shoot a groundhog, right? Like it's just going to incur a lot of cost. So
sure.
Just a small thing.
Yeah, man, you see that analogous in the States on elk hunts, and I don't think people even understand that dynamic, dude. Right. You know, like you can have wilderness guys, you know, like a big part of my outfitting, you know, you got all the logistics of, and it's not comparable, like because, if I was, you know, in the wilderness in Colorado, if I needed a part for a wall tent frame, I was still only like 6 hours from Costco. You know what I mean? I wasn't freaking 4 days from Costco or whatever. Yeah. So it's different, but the thing that guys don't understand is that, you know, that's a part of it that's not related to the hunting. So a $10,000 elk hunt that's in the wilderness, the hunting can actually be pretty shitty. Like it can be pretty freaking tough. And then a $10,000 elk hunt on just like a center pivot somewhere, like you're gonna basically see elk all day or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? So people don't understand that dynamic is that a lot of times you're just seeing the cost structure reflected. It has nothing to do with the animals as much, you know. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But I got a sidetrack, dude. What were we talking about before
we were talking about, if I recall correctly, kind of how you'll have a big concession. You were asking about having multiple operators on the same.
Yeah, dude. I don't know how you remembered that, dude. I'm impressed. Go for it.
I would say that's pretty darn rare. So a bunch of your guys. So again, we're talking South Africa, big chunks of Namibia. Pretty much all South Africa. A lot of these guides you go over there, and I don't need to name them, but anybody listening who's like looked up Africa at all knows a lot of these big outfits. And they're going to have a lodge that's going to be on their property, right? They're going to own all those animals. They're going to be there. And basically you're hunting that property right there. And then they'll probably have a bunch of leases, you know, within a drive, right? So maybe you wake up one morning and the guy says, all right, you know, you're eating breakfast in the Baki this morning, and we're going an hour and a half, 2 hours away and hunting there and then coming back or whatever, right? And so that'll be like a base there and go around. Now, if you have a really like giant property, occasionally you can hunt up to like 20 people on these really big properties at once. Okay. So when you're in camp at night, you have no idea who you're with, right? Generally they're Americans, but you know, there's people from Portugal and Spain and England. Like there's people from all, you know, some Arabs are really into hunting. Like they're there. Alternatively, what you're talking about applies a little more to, you know, a few different areas that are really specialized. So if there's some really specialized little area, you'll have kind of a PH or maybe an owner who also is a licensed PH, and he'll be there. And then if you really want pick something, right? A monster tsessebe or something like that. You might have your outfitter will call that guy and say, hey, I got a hunter for you. And you'll go over there and hunt with him. Occasionally, these can be smaller areas, right? So you might be going to a smaller property because they have a really specific color phase or whatever that that guy's driving around every day. He sees it. He says, hey, does anyone have a client who's looking for X animal?
Who's
Right.
interested in this? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that might be, it might be, I've hunted on a spot. There's just an agricultural farmer. Like 90% of his place was row crops. And he happened to have, a specific animal. And my buddy called me and said, hey, we can get a really good deal. This guy just, needs someone to come in here and do some culling. And he'd rather not just shoot it and leave it lay. So let's go. That said, those little areas where a lot of folks are going, a lot of times if you go, it might be you, your PH, and then also like a local guy or someone who's kind of a representative, and they're managing their own game, right? Okay. And even here in the US, there's areas that are pretty loosely managed, especially on public land. In Florida where I learned to hunt, you could shoot up to 2 bucks every single day of season. Like if you were good enough, right? Nobody was, but
sure.
Like that's an option. Whereas I know people, and I know people who, own a private piece of ground. And like, if you're going to shoot a deer there, you're going to be looking at a picture of it on your phone and you're shooting that exact, right? So these people they're not all kind of at that level, but they're managing their individual populations. So you don't necessarily get into that level of like, oh, well, the other guy here, it's not like some big hunting lease. What we do is we're kind of a bit of a blended model, but basically we go around, and one of the things we do is we pitch to game farm managers that there's these benefits to running kind of an archery only operation. One of them being your animals are a lot more chilled out, and you can kind of sell the safari rides and stuff like that too, right? Because they don't run for the hills at the first sound of an engine, 3 mountains over. And so you have kind of opportunities to do that. But we've got over 40 areas just in South Africa, the majority of which we have exclusive access to, right?
Oh, okay.
And so by doing that, we're able to move around a little bit. So when you go, and we'll get into this later, but we set up like really specific trips for each person. That's kind of one of the things that separates us. We're not running people through just, here's our lodge, come in, shoot whatever walks out. Like we want to make sure everybody gets what they're after. And so if you want, and I've done this on my most recent trip, we went to, I think I hunted 6 different properties in 7 days.
Okay.
Basically you're going and, okay, we're going to come over here and we're going to look for some mountain species. We're going to come over here and look for some grassland species and move around. And we've got areas in every single province of South Africa. And being able to do that and still have the kind of exclusivity. Now we'll have a few people going. We have a handful of different guides that are running it, but that's all constant communication, much like I'm sure your guides were when you're outfitting, kind of like sharing scouting intel and there's a lot of this over here or that or whatever. And so being able to move around. So even though we're not necessarily, you come with me for 7 days this year and next year and the next year, you're going to spend all 21 days in the same camp. Even though that's not the case, we still do have these exclusive areas and we have the opportunity to kind of move people around. So
I got you. How do you do it? How do you do it on the like logistics front? Are you staying at different places?
Yeah. When we're doing those big moves, absolutely. I mean, South Africa's a big country, and there are a lot of very nice game lodges out there, right? And most of the places you stay in South Africa, go to anybody at these big shows and they'll show you pictures and like, they're all pretty similar. I mean, there's probably people who'd be like, oh no, we have the nicest lodge. I mean, I've stayed in 10 lodges over there. I don't know, rough numbers. And like, it's all fairly similar, right? It's not the Ritz-Carlton in New York City, but it's 100% adequate and it beats the hell out of a wall tent, right? So, like you're also over there during just like a beautiful time of year generally. It's like perfect weather. It's just a fantastic time to be hunting. Depending on where you live in the States, you're getting away from 110-degree temperatures, right? So it's, where you stay is like fairly low impact on kind of the quality of your hunt.
Yeah. But, and that kind of aligns with what I've experienced, like just talking to people is I don't really think I've ever talked to anybody that, South Africa in particular, that's come back and been like had a gripe about the hospitality or something.
Right.
Like, usually people are like, oh dude, it's pretty awesome, but
people, bring their wives and, have them, while we go hunting, maybe another PH takes her and goes to the elephant preserve or whatever, where the elephants are so tame that whatever, you scratch their trunk or I don't know, I haven't done it, but like a lot of people do, right? And so it certainly is, like it's very functional. It's perfectly comfortable. People say, oh man, it's like 5 stars and it's great. I mean, I don't know, I won't get carried away, but like that's not going to be a problem for you. And if somebody wants to talk to me or whatever, I'm happy to send you all of our pictures. They're similar to everyone else's. We have some lodges, but you're not there to sit inside anyways. You're going to be out. When you're awake, you're going to be outside.
Sure. What, dude, let's talk about the styles of archery hunting, because this is actually, I think, an important one that people kind of gloss over.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, dude, some people just want to sit on water. And if I went there, like, I'm sure I would do that to some extent, some of that. But, man, I would much prefer to spot and stock. Like, how does that break down, man? I guess what's the culture around that?
Yeah, if you were to go, let's say you're just going to fill a summer with hunting in Africa, and you just went to every show, and everybody said, "Yeah, we can take you bow hunting in South Africa." 95% of those hunts, you're going to be sitting over water. To these guys' credits, like, they know how to get stuff killed, right?
Sure.
And that first hunt I went on, it was 100% like, "All right, Joey, you're coming with us. You're part of our program, right? And like, we're going to pick you up. We're going to put you here. PH is going to be with you. They'll drive off in the buggy. You're sitting there, and basically, it's actually interesting, man. If you're like a wildlife, property manager, there's a lot you can learn, because they're basically building like a keystone shaped water hole facing the blind, so that as an animal comes up perpendicular to drink, they're like 10 degrees quartered away, right?
Sure.
Like, they're stopping, they're drinking. The far side of it, has like, might have sticks or something propped up. I've seen all sorts of stuff. I've even seen a brick wall there, so that, they're not coming head on to you. And these things are laying up from 15 to 20 yards, right? And so you get the trad bow guy, you get the, lady who's shooting a crossbow who's never done it. Like, it's very effective. It's also really cool because, I didn't shoot an impala on my first trip. A herd of, 150 came in, and you're within 10 yards of them. You can hear them smacking lips and rubbing up against. It's just cool to be around them, right? I spent a lot of time deer hunting on a family property. Some of my favorite hunts are when I don't shoot anything, and I'm watching rutting behavior or seeing two little bucks fighting. I'm taking videos on my phone or, whatever. And it's really cool to like be in the action, and everything's dead silent, right? A lot of times the blinds, and not all the time, but a lot of times they're pit blinds. So what they're doing is digging down a little bit. So actually, you're like, when you stand up, kind of your waist is at ground level.
Oh,
so
okay.
Like, they'll open a window for you, and boom, you're right there, right? So some of those are super well built. I've been, kind of more hodgepodge pulled together ones, but labor's cheap. They build everything out of masonry over there, right? So
I got you.
Brick or rock and concrete a lot of times. Or, kind of like, there's some that look like termite mounds, because those are all over. The blind hunting, like, some people poo-poo it. Honestly, like, if you went and hunted with a really high-end whitetail outfit in Kansas or Iowa or whatever, like, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be sitting in a tree stand or a blind, right?
Sure.
And no one poo-poos it there, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and you know what people do poo-poo a lot, which it's funny because I don't do any of it, and it really has nothing to do with the activity. It just has to do with like some business reasons and like just historically what I've done. But baiting bears. Baiting bears is awesome for the same reasons that you talked about, because you can sit there and watch bears for hours.
You're right on top. Super cool. Yeah. And you learn so much about these animals. That's one of the cool things. If you're going to do a bow hunt, let's say you're a really good spot and stock hunter, and you come over with us, you're going to be within 40 yards of an animal like a couple times, right, in a day, if you're good, right, and you're kind of open to stalking a bunch of animals. If you're a gun hunter, you will never be within 50 or 100 yards of a lot of these animals. Maybe one stand on the side of the road, you go zipping past, but that's just the fact of the matter. Okay, if you go sit in a blind all day, right, and when you shoot that bow, it's like, it's quiet, right? If you're in an area that's bow hunting only, they'll all scatter and they'll come right back. You might spend 6 hours within 40 yards of like some game animal, right? And you're there, and it's just a really cool experience. I was in one of those pit blinds. It was literally my first day in Africa, and I'm looking out there and I'm watching impala and Neala and warthogs and whatnot. All of a sudden, I just see like knees come walking. It's a giant giraffe, right? Like, what's so I'm looking up at it. It's cool, right? It's like, so if you're going to go over there for a week, there's definitely hardos, and kind of, I imagine a lot of these guys being like, I'm only doing this. Okay, cool. I would highly recommend, if you're in like a really game rich area, take one day and sit in a tree stand or a blind, because it's cool as hell.
Just to enjoy it. Sure.
Yeah.
No, I got you. And I think I would have that mindset, man. Now, the reason I would push the spot and stock thing, and I think some of my audience would align with me on this, and or maybe it's just a weird manifestation I have of what I would want to get out of it. But I would want to go there, spend some time there, and do something that would make me better at spot and stock, right? And that's I think, well, because dude, everything you said about sitting in water sounds cool, and if I did that for a week, I'd probably be like, awesome. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
just been at Hunter Disneyland,
Mhm.
but I don't feel like as much of it would be applicable to me like building my skill set. Now, am I like totally off base? Do you have like thoughts on that?
I would agree with you 100%. So my last hunt over there, I hunted 7 days. I killed 7 animals. All but one were spot and stock, and there's a really unique reason I got in the blind for the other. I could have done it spot and stock, but it was a buffalo, and there was another one with him that was ornery, and you
I
don't
got
want
you.
in a bad situation there, So we went to a
Sure.
blind where he was headed and took care of him. But when you're doing that spot and stock over there, it is a level of like being in the zone, right, for a while. And you're with, so I'll hunt with Donnie or whatever, and all of our PHs over there, with if you go with our outfit, they're all like dyed in the wool bow hunters. They have to be first so that you don't
Sure.
get that situation like I was saying with my first one. But I just, I'm not like an inexperienced bow hunter, right? Like I've been around the block a little bit, and getting out there and going with him, I was like, my God, we are sitting still for a long time,
Sure.
or like, wow, we're really like making hay when the sun shines to cover ground or whatever. Like little things like that you pick up on just from someone who gets to see 200 animals a year tip over with a bow, right?
Right.
Which just, I don't care how good of a bow hunter you are in America and how much money you have, you do not shoot 200 big game animals a year with a bow.
Right.
It's impossible, right? So being able to do that, and really just in general, one of the big draws of Africa is that you can go, and it's not just, hey, I want to go on a whitetail hunt maybe where the terrain allows me to spot and stock and I can figure it out. It's like you're getting reps, right? And we have we'll talk about kind of packages and setting up hunts later. We have one right now that's 10 animals in 7 days. Basically, everybody gets all 10 animals. We can get most of those, with spot and stock. Okay, that means you're going on 15 stocks in this week. And
Sure.
you just learn so much quicker doing stuff, right? And I've screwed up a million of them, and it's going to happen, right? But
Yeah.
you're over here, and you're seeing animals, you're getting opportunities, and you're also, you get this in the blind, but you really get that in the zone moment. A lot of the animals I've had the opportunity to shoot are like whitetail does and pigs and whatnot, which just,
Right.
if you have really high bow hunting numbers in the U.S., that plays into it somewhere. It just has to.
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
And
Yeah.
I definitely get like a little bit numb, and this isn't like
Sure.
some like, oh, I'm Billy Badass, but like I've done it a lot. And when I shoot a whitetail doe, I'm not like, oh my God, I hope I get her anymore, right?
Yeah.
But
Sure.
over here, like every one of these animals is like a cool thing that I've like thought about or, researched and learned about. And it's, for the most part, like it's going to be my one or my only or first
Sure.
of that species. So every one you're like super locked in, you're in the zone. And then there's also slight behavioral differences, right? Like if even just based on like the, typology of the animals, and hey, if this one's a grazer, all right, like when his head's down and he's in the tall grass, that's when you move. When
Sure.
when you see those horns start tipping up, you better get your butt down, and so little stuff like that. But that stalking is incredibly fun, but it's so like just action packed in terms of like the ground you can cover learning, right?
Yeah.
And
Sure.
I'm as guilty as anyone of reading a million books and watching how-to videos on, how to change the air filter in your car up to whatever. But
Yeah.
when you are out there doing it, 2 hours of doing is worth, I don't know, 200 of like watching, right?
Oh yeah.
And so being able to put that together and then get all those reps. So yeah,
Yeah.
to your question, I don't think you're off base at all. I think that's one of like the key selling points, really.
Sure, I do too, dude. It's such a weird dynamic, man. I talk to guys always about this, and I think it's because I personally like mentally struggle with it because it's a temporal thing too, man. For instance, I mean, I'll pick on myself instead of picking on clients or anything like that. But for
Sure.
me personally, I don't when I'm archery hunting, I don't get it. I mean, I guide a lot during archery. I'll guide every single day of September, but that's different because I don't have a bow in my hand. I'm not timing when to draw. You know, guys will get off on this kick, man, where they think they know everything and all they do is like shit on the archers they're with. Like, I don't know why he didn't draw at this time. It's like, well, it's easy for you to say because you're not like the dude with the bow, you know. So it's different. So, but anyways, outside of that, like for me, archery hunting, I might archery hunt 3 times a year, you know, but they'll be spaced out. They'll be spaced out like months in between. So literally every time, 90% of the repetition is just trying to like remember what I did last time. It's not like a learning, like I think people discount that with hunting, man. Like the analogy I use, like I always use the martial arts analogy because I'm into jiu-jitsu or whatever. And it's like if a guy came to you and was like, hey, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 20 years and I do it 1 week a year. You'd be like, you haven't really been doing it for 20 years, man. You probably still suck. You know what I mean? And then you got a guy who's been doing it for 6 months but does it every day. He's going to be way better, dude, because it's like he can build on like every day.
Oh, yeah.
Know?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that it's hard to do that as a hunter in the States.
And I'm kind of like getting into like pet peeve land, but there's a lot of dudes out there who like have pimped out bows and everything. And like, I'm probably not the most gear savvy dude in the world, but
sure.
Like, I like nice shit, you know, like I think we all can appreciate that. Probably every one of anybody who's like watching us talk right now, like can appreciate nice stuff.
Oh yeah.
If you don't buy a new bow for a couple of years, you can go over there, and especially if you're not like super concerned about trophy quality and you're like actually focusing on getting better, you can come over and shoot 8 animals by skipping a new bow and a few accessories every couple of years. All right. Me with a 3-year-old bow having shot 10 more animals versus like the guy with a new bow every year who's like gone on 3 elk hunts and drawn his bow once, I'm going to demolish you, right?
Sure.
In any that actually gets into like actual hunting skill, right? And I've been fortunate to have some of those opportunities, but I look back at like where I was when I killed like 2 deer with my bow and I thought I was hot stuff. And now, that guy, like, it just like the intangibles in this sport or past or whatever you want to call it, like the intangibles are almost more important, right, than like what I can teach you by watching John Dudley or like whatever else.
Oh yeah, dude, for sure, 100% they are, Joe. Dude, I actually this came up in those last podcasts I did with Jeremy Duggar. He's got this cool data set on archery stuff. But anyways, and I'm actually going to ask you some questions on that are kind of related. But it came up with him. We have a mutual friend who I view as probably one of the best archery elk hunters in the States that very few people know. People actually know about him pretty intensely. He's a native guy who guides on a big reservation. They know him for mule deer. They don't know him for elk, but he's an elk killing machine. And I was sitting with him. I was with him on a hunt this last year, and I asked him what the weight of his arrows were, and he had no idea. And then I asked him, I'm like, dude, do you know like within 50 grains? And he just looked at me like, what the fuck? Like, why are you asking me something so like, no, I don't know, you know?
I have so much respect for that, man.
He's in a totally different world, though. Because, dude, everybody, I mean, you know, you go to the Hunt Expo, you go to a TAC event or whatever, like, people know like the down to the half grain what their arrows are. And then additionally a bunch of other shit, too. So it's just, it's to your point, you know what I mean? He's been focusing on other stuff. That's not like on top of his priority.
And to defend that guy a little bit, because honestly, I was him for a little bit back before I started killing stuff. But, you know, when you're just focused on, hey, I'm here, maybe you don't have a ton of like disposable resources and whatnot. And you're kind of locked in, you know, you got cabin fever or whatever, your tag's over, or maybe you got one or whatever. Don't have a lot of near you. Like, what are you going to do to make you feel better at it? Honestly, man, like, just go shoot your bow. Make sure you can get those arrows flying perfectly straight. Do not go to the bow shop. Do not go spend $300. Like, it's not going to make you a better hunter, man. I'm just telling you now, you know?
No, for sure. Yeah, but you kind of, you hit on something there, Joe, that I think is relevant, and I hope the audience, like, nobody in the audience, like, takes offense to it, but I think it's maybe a reminder for myself that, dude, like, there is value in not buying stuff, and also just like a lack of or trying to avoid just an infatuation with it, because you can take that energy and money, and there are hunts out there. I mean, you can do the Africa thing, but you can also, do a bunch of hunts in the U.S. that are cheap, or whatever.
Yeah, you can go do a motel hunt in, Kentucky or whatever on public land. Like, you can get out there, whatever state you live in, like, it's touching other states, and like they have animals too, right? Like,
sure.
And that's something I go off on some of my friends about sometimes is, like this guy's got, whatever, the newest spotting scope. He's got SIG binos. He's got Swaro binos. He's got like everything. He's like, oh, I could never go to Africa. And it's like, really, dude? Because what you're wearing right now, I could take you to Africa.
Yeah, it costs the trip. Yeah.
And honestly, it did change for me when I looked at myself and I literally said, like, what am I interested in? Am I interested in like watching animals hit the ground, or do I want to be like the coolest kid at the TAC event, right?
Sure.
Like, no disrespect to those guys. I hope they're having a blast, but like, I want to knock things over. What's going to get me better at that? For me, it's shooting a 4-year-old bow that I know in and out,
sure.
right? And not tinkering and spending that money to go over there and tip stuff over. But
guys, I've been using Onyx maps for almost 2 decades now, hunting, guiding, outfitting. It is the gold standard tool when it comes to mapping software in the hunting world. They've been a huge supporter of my content for multiple years. So if you want to support me and you want to support them, use my code CliffG for 20% off at onyxmaps.com. It is an awesome tool that I use all the time when I'm preparing for hunts, and I use it almost every single day in the field. For navigation, knowing unit boundaries, knowing private land boundaries, it is the tool you have to have. Yeah. And I think that it's a really interesting topic. We could talk for the rest about it because, dude, I've personally had a real volatile perspective on this over the last 15 years working as a guide or whatever. Like to the level of me being very I would say asinine about it. Just people are, like, this is why they're incompetent because of this obsession or whatever, all the way to, now I've kind of mellowed on it to the point that I think what it is, man, is that optimizing gear and shopping and all of that, that's actually a hobby in itself. And people do enjoy that. And what was a wake up call to me is, with my membership group and this podcast and the YouTube deal, I get people who come to me, Joe, and they think I know everything about all gear.
Yeah.
And when usually a guy asks me a really specific question about gear, he knows way more than I do because he's already he's in the zone on it, And what that made me realize is oh, okay, I can't really shit on this concept because what it is some guys just get utility out of shopping. You know what I mean? Like, my wife will go shopping for no reason other than the fun of shopping.
Right.
It's the same deal, Yeah.
Well, and they like to mask it a little bit, right? But yeah,
right.
So my background is in, at least my outdoors background involves a lot of big game fishing and working on fishing boats. And you and I've talked about it.
Sure.
But I was fishing a big tournament in the Bahamas, and I'm talking big money, like 1.3 million for first place. And the boat that won, and I was kind of still in my gear obsession phase. When you're a mate on these boats, and I was, freelancing, so I was working on a lot of different boats. I knew all the gear, and I was like, oh, this guy's got X brand, this guy's got Y brand, glad I'm on a boat with all Talicas this week or whatever it is, right? We got demolished. Everybody got demolished by a boat that was pulling 4 naked ballyhoo. For those who don't know, that is the most basic, the first bait you learn to rig. It is basically free. There's no colors, no skirts, no fanciness. They're pulling 4 basic ballyhoo, and they did all the little stuff right. And they just had a team that didn't make mistakes. And I walked out and I was like, my God, maybe you don't need $40,000 worth of tackle and lures and whatever. It's just, fishing where the fish are, not screwing up on it. You get your chance. Same thing with hunting, man. So many people, I have clients now. I had a guy, let me go on a little bit of a detour, but great client. Super excited. He's headed over in September. He's going to have an awesome hunt with us. And he's talking about Cape Buffalo arrows. And a lot is made of shooting a Cape Buffalo with a bow. And I get that it's a big thing. And it's way bigger and tougher than anything you're going to shoot at in the U.S. for the most part. But
kind of scary, at least in concept.
Yeah. And, things can go wrong. Like your guide's there with a big double rifle, and as he should be. Like, that's just the situation. But he calls this guy, and it's a pretty well-known person. I don't want to, like, shit on anybody, so I'm not going to say who it is. But he's selling these arrows, and he's like, hey, these are what you need, whatever. And the guy had some, like, of another, spine set up from this guy that he liked and flew well. So he called him and asked, he's like, here's what you need for Cape Buffalo. $900 for a dozen arrows. Okay.
Yeah.
Guy says $900 for a dozen arrows. And then he tells him, he says, you need to watch the Cape Buffalo, and you want to shoot when it is exhaled, so that when the arrow gets there, he's breathing in and the ribs are expanding. I thought the guy was fucking with me, dude. I swear to God. And he's like, no, this is what he said. And I was like, I kind of looked the guy up, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this guy's never killed a Cape Buffalo. I don't think he's ever seen one, right? But, like, go watch a cow, right? Like, that's basically it. Like, can you tell when they're breathing? Because their skin's twitching because there's fly. Or,
right.
like, oh, you're crapping yourself because you're at full draw on something that wants to turn you into pulp, right?
Sure.
Like, so that's, like, even just a microcosm of how, like, in order to sell that stuff, he has to make it seem more complicated, right?
Right.
It's just like if you're a lure salesman at the tournament where the guy with the 4 naked ballyhoo just won, like, you're not too thrilled with him, right? And
yeah. No,
like, the fact of the matter is, like, a perfect tune on your bow costs nothing but time, right?
Sure.
Focus on that, you'll be far more successful.
Yeah. No,
we
no,
got topic. We're getting redundant. But
No. People love this stuff. Or at least, well, maybe people don't love it, but I think it's a very interesting topic. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it, dude, and I'm gonna nerd out on gear with you for a second.
Okay.
I'm curious, man, in the general sense, given that you're talking about pretty big numbers between you and his name's Daniel, is that right?
Donnie. So
Donnie, I'm sorry. So you and Donnie.
Yeah.
What's the what's the feeling on, like, heads? Mechanicals, fixed head, heavy head, like what's the is there a consensus over there, or what's the thought?
I would say that hesitant to say this because people take it the wrong way, but, like, everything works, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So, like, everything, I can wound an animal with anything. I can kill an animal with almost anything, right? I'm not saying you should, like, go get a rage and shoot a Cape Buffalo, but look, we've killed Cape Buffalo with expandables, right?
Sure.
And we had a girl kill Cape Buffalo with expandable on film, right? And it was kind of a big deal at the time. But either way, like, if your stuff is dialed, you're good. Now, that's not a very satisfying answer, but I'm a big believer in, like, sturdy and super sharp. And I actually, honestly, like, once I can get everything to fly right, as long as my fixed blades are fine, like, if it ain't broke, right?
Yeah,
and so
sure.
I can get, like, iron wheel wides. I have some of those. I took an animal at 70 yards with one. Like, people complain about big, wide fixed blades because they can't fly at distance. I'm not a great archer. Like, I promise if you put in 3 weeks of consistent practice, you'll be better than me. But you get out there, you work on your tune, you practice. I've got a spot where I go and I lug my target out there and I shoot a few times a week. And, like, you put in a softball every single time. And especially on some of these bigger animals, on a kudu, man, your kill zone is
big, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you make sure you know what you're doing. You talk to your guide, he helps you, and you figure it out and you get it done. I think that a lot of times people are almost like you said, they like the different gear. And I've got people who, there's one had QAD Exodus. When I shot 100 grains, that was kind of what I went with because at high volume, they're super cheap. You can replace the blades, whatever.
Sure.
I've not had a single problem with that. I'm over 50 animals with QAD Exodus.
Right.
And I don't have any issues. I got a buddy and he's same thing. He's 100% with them. And he's shot 7 or 8 animals. He's a good bow hunter.
Sure.
And he's like, oh yeah, I'm like looking at this. And what do you think about these broadheads? And I'm like, look, man, knock yourself out. Like, is something wrong with the others? He's like, no, I still, stack them on orders or whatever. So, like, there's a big perception that you have to have, like, $80 broadheads and stuff. The QAD Exodus is what I took the first time. I had no issues. They're super cheap, and you can afford to practice with them too, right? Because you can replace the blades, and they're not, like, single use or anything. That said, if expandables work well for you, just make sure that thing is sharp and your arrow's flying straight. I think putting an expandable, since we're nerding out on gear here, a lot of people use the expandable as kind of a band-aid for bad arrow flight.
Right.
And I've heard somebody who's like, he's big on Instagram, and I was hanging out with him and talking with him, and he's killed some giant deer. He said, man, I just don't like having to change my tune to get the broadheads, so I just screw on the Megameter or whatever. Okay, here's the thing. If that arrow's not going perfectly straight when it gets there with a fixed blade, it's not going to be going perfectly straight when it gets there with an expandable either. And just like my degree's in mechanical engineering, I went through a huge phase of like broadhead nerding, and like just get that energy going in a straight line. And that's the most important part. And so that's why I say tune, grip, everything. When I practice all summer, it's like one broadhead followed by 4 field points. That's every end. Right. And, you know, if you're keeping it in there together, perfect, right? So.
Yeah. And I think, no, I agree with you. It's kind of my mindset too. And there's a couple things there that I find are interesting. Like your point about, you know, not using mechanicals as a band-aid to tune, really what you're saying is like, look, it doesn't matter if it's a mechanical or a fixed head. If it doesn't hit the animal straight, you've lost something, right? You've lost some value in like the terminal ballistics of the arrow if it's not straight. It doesn't matter that you don't have to tune your bow because your field points are hitting the same as the mechanical, right? Because you're still losing something because your arrow's not straight. I totally agree with that. I think that it's the reality is that it just comes down to like what people are most comfortable with in the end, like what they're most accurate with. And it's the same like cliche you get in with firearms too. You get into the same dynamic. One thing though that you mentioned that I have noticed recently, I've noticed because I've been paying attention, is expandables are, you know, the way I view expandables is they're basically disposable. Like I don't use them again. Now that's obviously, you know, an environment where you're shooting a lot of animals that could be an issue, but they're always sharp. And man, I've had some fixed heads, and I've been shooting fixed heads lately, in heavier ones. I've had fixed heads that when I carry them around in my quiver, they get dull. Yeah. And I had a friend of mine mention that to me too, and I was like, I have the same thing. Like I know they're smoking sharp. Like I've stropped them and stuff. When I put them in there, carry them around for a couple weeks, and they're dull. I don't know if it's vibration or what, you know. And maybe there's other ways I can mitigate it, but if you are going to shoot fixed heads, like keep those freaking things sharp. For
sure. Well, this is critical everywhere. Donnie is real big right now, so he shot Severs for a while, and you know he came over here and he was shooting all beast broadheads. And I know everybody likes to pick on them or whatever, but I tell you what, those things are sharper than hell. And
the beast is a big mechanical, right?
Yeah. It's basically like a Sever, but the two arms can kind of flex independently. And those things are insanely sharp. You get a good cut. If they stay open and they're sturdy, you know, I mean, that's critical. Like sharpness and accuracy are basically it for me. But to tie this all back, honestly, if you call me and say, hey, Joe, get me set up, we're going to Africa. I say, perfect. As long as you're hunting plains game, you don't need to change what your setup is, right? Unless you want to get into like giraffe and Cape Buffalo and God forbid elephant or hippo or croc, like any really tough stuff. Like for the most part, it all works. Just whatever you're confident in. And some people don't like this because they're like, oh man, like I wanted to get, you know, $1,000 in new arrows and broadheads. Like cool.
Yeah, sure.
Nerd out all you want. But like, that's one of the cool things is come over, get reps in with your exact setup and see how it performs. There's a lot of dudes out there, and I got nothing but love in my heart if this is you. But like, oh man, I'm a super hardcore hunter. It's like, okay, how many years? 5 years. Okay, what have you killed? Well, 1 cow elk. Okay, great. You have no idea, like all the different scenarios that can happen when that arrow leaves that string, right? And I say this as someone who, unfortunately, like I've lost animals, I've wounded stuff, I've had stuff done. Like it all has happened to me, right? I've screwed up in every possible way, and I'm probably going to make a new one. But you're going to walk through a lot of those things. If you walk through all those things with a 1,200 grain arrow because you read all the Ed Ashby stuff and some guy on YouTube told you this is what you need to kill an impala, like you're detracting from the potential, interchangeability of that experience, in my opinion. And that's kind of one of the big benefits. Yeah, it's a blast, and who doesn't love coming over and hunting stuff? But if your actual goal is, like I said, to be, a better hunter, right? And it's not just about like going on the hunt and killing stuff. I do believe that this could be like a really good use of your money and time. And then even within that, like, why not maximize it, right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think it's a good point, man. And the other reality is, like, related to all this gear stuff, man, is I mean, you have, like, if something doesn't perform how you think it should or whatever, even if you have that experience, it's kind of statistically irrelevant. You know what I mean?
You're right.
Like, I deal with this with firearm stuff. I mean, guys will ask me like terminal performance on different bullets or whatever, and they look at me like I'm a dumbass, because generally I don't have the industry standard of like, you should only shoot Nosler partitions, or you should only shoot match bullets, right? Like, I don't have that, because even as a guide, dude, I've seen like all sorts of different bullets and all sorts of different animals, and but it's still like this like disjointed data set with all different things. And then, but what's weird, dude, is I'll meet somebody that had a mechanical fail, or one of their clients a mechanical failed, or a client shot an elk with a match bullet and it didn't work out, and like their whole opinion's based on that one time. Yeah. And it's like, dude, that's a crazy way to think about it, man.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's pretty wild. It's super, and it's really prevalent in hunting,
Yeah, it is. And especially if, I mean, I sound like a broken record, but especially if like you get one shot every 3 years, which like, I'm not a great hunter, man. That's pretty much what I'm looking at. Like on my public land hunts out west, like one shot every 2 or 3 hunts, like, that's what it comes down to. If that screws up, like, that's going to live in your head. And I'd be lying if I said, like, I can think of 2 right now. I've got an expandable that 100% didn't open because I recovered the animal and I saw the high sides. And I have one that's lauded, like, all across the internet as being super robust, one piece, machine, blah, blah, blah. It broke. It was a 4-blade. One of the blades sheared off on an Impala rib. An Impala is smaller than a whitetail, right? And I'm like, honestly, I'm not shooting this again. It's just in my mind, right?
Yeah, sure.
But even though, like, I know tons of people are super successful and probably busted through like an elk femur with it or something, right? But like, for me, it's just, So
I mean, that's different. Like, if it's a psychological barrier and you're not confident in it, like, don't personally, like, I'm totally with you. Like, quit using it, but don't go tell everybody that match bullets suck because you had one splatter on a shoulder somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that I think's interesting about it, Yeah. But dude, we got to bring it back to Africa.
Okay,
it's a good conversation, but I think we could probably talk about it forever, man. The last gear one. Is there any gear that's used in Africa that you've started using over here?
Not that I like really brought back. I've seen some stuff utilized in different ways and whatnot, and being around camp, just seeing what's working for guys. One thing that I've like kind of wanted to do, this is so stupid, but I shot my buddy's double rifle over there, and it's just like so cool. And I think it would be neat to, like, when I'm doing a deer call or something, just like walk through the woods with a double, because it's fun, like shooting that leaf sight, with the ivory bead. I'm not going to do it, but it seems cool.
There's no culture of that in the States, right? People just
And the only culture you'll see, I mean, there's a very small niche of guys on like Instagram and whatnot. Like, there's basically 3, and I can name them right now, and you probably could. But like, they're super into it, and some of the old time guys are real into their double rifles, but no one really hunts with them over here. And it's they're just fantastic pieces. For those who don't know, like, if you're mechanically inclined at all, it's not a shotgun, right? Like, they have to take these 2 barrels and weld them together, and then they go test fire it, and they inevitably hit different. And the guy goes back, breaks the welds, re-welds them together, and then finally he's like, oh shit, this worked.
Yeah.
And he's going to build the gun around it right there, and then go test fire and see if it's stuck. That's cool, right?
Yeah, so because the same sight for both barrels, right?
Right, or basically like they're hitting like this, right?
I got you.
Or like at a certain range. But it's super cool. It's fun. It's fun to like get your butt whooped by a 470 Nitro Express or whatever. Like,
Sure.
I learned to roll with it. The other thing that a lot of guys wear is they just have these super short gaiters over their sandals,
Sure.
especially in sandy areas. Or not sandals, but you know what I'm saying. Like they're low boots.
Yeah.
I thought like, I'd hunted for a while. I was wearing pants. And then this was on my first hunt, like third day. I was like, oh, I'll be like the guides or whatever, and I wore my shorts and my boots. Man, I had this water buck that we followed through the bush for like an hour. And that can't, like, you better be tough if you think you're going to wear shorts like those guides. Cause
Yeah.
like your shins are not ready for that, man. It's just bleeding and like just nasty. There's some rough stuff over there. So,
well, dude, is it because they know the plants not to step in, or is it just because they've built up some toughness?
It's probably both, man. It's probably that I'm dumb and a bitch,
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely like a level of both. But a lot of what they do though, it goes back to what I said before. Like, it's just super simple, man. Like, this is not an area, especially the more rural you get. Like, they're super like resourceful. They're
Sure.
doing all sorts of stuff, and but you don't really need that much gear to go over there. Like, if you're a gun hunter, I could literally go and basically what I'm wearing right now and like have a successful rifle hunt because they'll hand you a gun, right? If you're a bow hunter, like, you need your own stuff, but for the most part, like that, a rangefinder, you're pretty well set. Like,
Yeah.
Just going over there, and even the things at their disposal though, like, they're a little more resourceful. They figure out how to use. Like we talked about shooting out of the back of the buggy, but even still, hey, here's I see an animal over here. There's a road there. They're used to stuff driving by. We're going to hang on the back. When we drive by, we're going to duck behind that bush. We're going to army crawl and get
Sure.
up. Like, there's no gear in that, right? Just, a car or whatever that everybody's got. But like, you're just thinking through, doing it.
Technique.
It's pretty basic on the gear side, I'd say.
Sure. No, I got you. Good stuff, man. So let's talk. A guy comes to you, we'll keep it to kind of this theme here, right? He's a Colorado elk hunter, does his week elk hunting every year. He's like, I want to go to Africa with my bow. I've been like struggling, not just struggling from the perspective of I don't really get to shoot much, that sort of thing. I want to kind of, let's say I want to work on my buck fever, right? I want to get over there and get some reps. What should I be thinking about in terms of my expectations? What species should I focus on? Any of that stuff. Do you have a perspective on that?
Yeah. I talk to a lot of guys about Africa, man. And the funny thing is, like, I would say that what you're talking about, it logically makes perfect sense. Everybody starts looking, gets going, and like the big one is kudu, right? Everyone's like, oh my God, I really want a kudu. Like, it's just so tough to not get excited about these animals.
Yeah,
if
sure.
Someone call me and we're like, I really do not care what I shoot. I just want to get reps. Perfect, man. We'll set you up a great hunt, right? But like,
when they get there, it changes. Yeah, I get it.
You're gonna like a few animals, right? So
yeah.
The thing is, especially if your goal is something like this, and with the bow, I'm gonna say, yeah, South Africa's the spot, right, to get you started, and that is where most guys start, unless they're going with someone who, for whatever reason, it's like, oh, we're going to Tanzania, and you're paying, 6 figures.
Yeah, different deal. Yeah.
But like South Africa, we'll get you set up, and a lot of outfitters are running way higher volume than us. We intentionally keep it low because, like, Donnie is involved on every single hunt that I book, every single hunt that each person talks to. If once we're booking, if you want to have a phone call with him for an hour and talk about it, like, I'll set that up for you, right? And so what we're going to do is say, hey, you can look at kind of some basic packages and whatnot, but for the most part, like, tell me what your goals really are. If you say, hey, I really want to, just get a lot of reps in, we may be able to find you an opportunity to go where, hey, if you're okay shooting 3 or 4 cow wildebeest or whatever, we can get you on that, right? And wildebeest are massive, huge kill zone. You still got to like have your act together because they're pretty thick. You got to be, good shot placement and whatnot. They're tough animals, but we can set stuff up like that where, hey, if you want to come over and I've got $8,000 or whatever, which, like we talked about before, $8,000 doesn't get you very far in the elk hunting world right now.
Right.
Like it, and so especially if you're talking like guaranteed success at all, but we can get you out there and we can say, hey, we're going to go shoot 6 or 7 animals, right, for that $8,000. And like we talked about, I mean, not to just repeat myself, but you're going to come a really far way doing that, especially if you say, hey, I think it'd be cool to do some spot and stock as well as some blind hunting, or, you know, mix it up or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
Honestly, like, your outfitter kind of knows what he's doing, right? And a lot of times if you go somewhere, you can kind of like gain a lot by immersing yourself in that experience. And that's nowhere more true than this, right? You know, if you're hunting with Donnie, he's like, hey man, now is the time to go spot and stock. You're like, yeah, you know, I'm kind of comfortable sitting in here, you know, drinking my Coke or whatever. Like, just be open to kind
Yeah,
of
like listen to the guy. He's not trying to fuck you.
I probably don't need to listen to the guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of those opportunities, but being super upfront, and that's one thing that Jimmy was saying, and I mean, big props to him, especially if you're a bow hunter and with any outfit. I mean, I'm a kind of a preacher of bow hunting Africa, period. I'm not saying you have to do it with us, but like, if you're going to go, you need to be super explicit about the type of experience you're looking for.
Right.
And even with me, that's super helpful, right? Because we can get you in the right places. We can get you, hey, you want to be somewhere where there's kind of like rocky mountains and stuff like that. Not like the proper noun Rocky Mountains, but mountains that are rocky.
Right.
You know, like, we can set that up. You want to be, you know, having opportunities to cover distance on plains. We can set that up. You know, there's a lot of opportunities in really being able to discuss that, because there's some animals that simply are not, I mean, yeah, you could put them in a pen somewhere and like keep them alive, but they're not thriving in certain environments. So we can talk to you and you say, hey, I want to experience 2 or 3 different, you know, types of place. And here's the animals. And man, it'd be cool if I got a Gemsbuck and a Nyala or whatever. And those are 2 really gorgeous animals that are fantastic trophies. And then some people say, hey, I'd like to get one of these. Other than that, like, here's $4 or $5 grand is kind of like my budget. Let's see what we can get on. Right.
Sure.
And basically we can draw you something up just like that. And I'll put together a package. I mean, you can list off any combination of animals and we'll work through. All right, this is probably going to take you 6 days, 7 days. I generally don't recommend people come over for less than 7.
Right.
But we can talk about it and tweak that package just kind of so it fits your needs and kind of the exact hunting experience you want, and then get you out there, right? Because
sure,
to some degree, you don't know what you don't know till you go.
On the length of trip, like the 7-day minimum, and dude, and I've had guys tell me like, don't go over there unless you're going for 15 days or 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now, why is that, man? Is it logistics? Is it like what?
Yeah. If you're going to Zambia, for example, Zambia is a fantastic destination, and you know, you can get leopard there, you can get all sorts of stuff. You're going to want 14 days because of the amount of time to get in there, and then also, like, if you're baiting leopard, you got to give it time to let the operation play. You know, even if we pre-bait, man, if he's not there on day 1, like, maybe kill him on day 1. Hell yeah.
Right.
Maybe you need a little time, right? And just the success rates in Africa, man. Cliff, I'm telling you, like, we're batting percentages that no like outfitter in the U.S. is hitting consistently, right?
Yeah, sure.
Part of that, like, you know, pay based on trophy fee system is like, we're gonna, like, you have to get it for us to.
Yeah, the incentive,
right?
The incentives are different.
Yeah, and so basically, by being able to set that up, we really want that to be the case. Now, a lot of people say, hey, come on in, land, stay at one of the hotels in Joburg, and then, you know, we'll come pick you up, and then we'll move up here. And okay, if that's what you want to do, I'm a little more of like a go guy. You know, I'm like the drive through the night, get up and start walking and just puke halfway kind of guy, because, again, I'm not the smartest. But when you look at it, the travel over there, depending on where you go, you can fly direct, but I usually don't. Most recently, I've been going through Qatar, and it's like kind of a cool experience. I actually know someone there, so I could spend the night at his condo and whatnot. But when you get down there, like, you've put in 2 days of travel, roughly, you know, because you're going like into the time zones too, so you're losing a bunch of time.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know, you leave on Saturday, you get there Monday, basically. Yeah, my first hunt, I did 5 days. I didn't know what I didn't know. I did 5 days. I had a great hunt, whatever. But like, by the time you get settled in, it's like, all right, tomorrow's your last day, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, like, by the time you're comfortable, you got to go.
Yeah, and we can get you a hell of a hunt in 7 days in South Africa. You know, if you're going to Zambia, man, you're flying into Joburg, then you're taking another flight up to 1 or 2 different spots. You might even be taking a bush plane. Like, by the time you've done your 3 flights and your drives and your waits and, you know, God forbid your luggage got lost, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to turn around in 5 days. You know, you need to have time to settle. So South Africa, honestly, I mean, 15 days plus in South Africa is a long time.
Yeah, I
and
got you.
you're going to run up some trophy fees unless you start.
Yeah, it's a cost thing too. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're not going to sit around and like not do anything. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I've been there, right? I've, you know, shot out my budget. I'm like, all right, let's go look for some cheap stuff now, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But there are fixed costs. And so understanding that, you know, oh, okay, you know, I've spent X amount to get over here. I always say, like, when you're standing right there in Africa, to shoot that Impala costs you $600, right?
Yeah.
To shoot that Impala Ram. When I'm here at my house in Houston, to shoot that Impala Ram costs me $4,000, right?
Yeah.
So you've kind of got your fixed costs, and then once you're over there, you know, some people put together like first timer to Africa packages and stuff that are like $3,000 and have, you know, 3-4 animals, and it's a 4 or 5 day hunt. I think they're just trying to get you hooked, honestly, and get you over there and march out some big stuff in front of you and get you excited.
Yeah, and then you're gonna go. Yeah.
But
sure.
In general, I don't think that, like, I mean, we kind of got away from having those super cheap packages. And if somebody wants that, by all means, reach out to me. We will set it up for you. We don't put those out there because, like, nobody wants to go through all this to shoot, you know, an Impala, a Steenbuck, and a Duiker, right?
Yeah, dude. I think that's good business, dude. Like, why not just have, you know? I think as the world becomes more and more transparent, dude. Like, why not just have transparency? You know what I mean?
For sure.
All right, guys, my Spring Bear online course is up on the website at pursuitwithcliff.com/springbear. I've taken all of my knowledge, everything I've learned on over 50 successful spring bear hunts across the states and across Canada. All of that I've shoved into this course. Right now, there's already 6 or 7 hours up, and I'm going to continually improve this course. Once you sign up, you'll have access forever. All of the information and the full course will be complete by the first week of April. There's a ton of knowledge, a ton of tactics, a ton of gear talk that's going to help anybody who's preparing for a spring hunt. Go check it out.
I will say, like I said, I agree with the vast majority of what Jimmy said. But I just want to throw out there, he said something about packages. That is not how we do it. That's not how other places I know have done it. He said,
"Can you explain so I understand?"
Yeah. So what he was saying is that, you know, you can go shoot a la carte, which obviously everyone can do. If you call me and say, hey, Joe, put together a package. I want to shoot a kudu, a eland, a sable, and a warthog or whatever. I'll say, perfect. Let me draw this up. Okay, let's do that, you know, whatever. Unless you're super crunched for time, I always say 7 days as a starter. And then, you know, maybe you got some other stuff you want to look for, and that'll inform where we take you. What he was saying is, if you do a package, you're going to get charged for every animal, whether or not you get it. Maybe that's how his guy works. That's not us. One, we're going to get you opportunities with these animals. I mean, we're booking you on packages with enough time. Like, we're going to make sure you have opportunities. But also, let's say for whatever reason, you know, it's, I don't know, crazy weather event or like something like.
Or you can't get somewhere.
Yeah,
whatever.
or like, okay, hey, we had you with, you know, an Impala. That's not going to work. Let's go find you a Blesbuck or a Warthog or like whatever's interesting to you. Because I mean, in what we do, we're not charging anybody. The only situation would be like if you wound something, which is kind of standard in
sure,
places like you draw blood, whatever. That said, these guys are super good at finding critters. Yeah, we got dogs, but again, like these trackers are insane, man. There's 40 different types of animals, and they're following the one that's limping or whatever. You know,
it's wild, man. I hear that all the time.
So impressive, so impressive, man.
Yeah.
I look and it's like those are all footprints. Yes. They're like, oh, you see how this one's like his front right arm's messed up because you hit him low or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah. Are most of the trackers? This may make me sound like so naive, dude. Are most of the trackers South African, or are they from other countries?
Yeah, man, South African is like, and I'm not an expert on this. There's probably someone listening who knows better. South African is a really tough term to say because just in my time over there, I've heard people refer to like the blacks, the colors, the Afrikaans, the English. Like there's a lot of different people who live in South Africa. That said, all the trackers I have been with in SA have been black South Africans. That said, there's a lot.
Okay, but they're from South Africa and they speak English.
I mean, yeah, they, you know, probably wouldn't be best to like put them on an hour-long podcast, right? But for the most part, like they can get by talking about hunting with you. But
Oh, cool.
the guide is gonna, your PH is gonna talk to them in English, a little bit around you, but for the most part, it's gonna be Afrikaans. And then if you get a group of trackers together, they're gonna be speaking a different language usually.
I gotcha.
And that could be anything. But the official language of South Africa is English, right? So
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured.
you're around down there. English is street signs and everything else, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the only reason I ask is that whole tracking thing is like very intriguing. And I feel like when I go down there, I'm just going to annoy the shit out of those trackers. And,
yeah, no, you're totally right. And especially like the true classic tracking, like what you read about, a lot of times happens kind of in those other countries where you're on you're following an elephant for 20 miles. There's a saying like, you kill an elephant with your feet, you just execute them with the rifle, right?
Yeah,
because,
like pre-tracking, like not
right.
Not,
Yeah. Before the shot,
Yeah.
following it. And that's how I did. So I did a lion over there. Same thing. I'm following trackers who are going, hey, all right, he's weaving, which means he's slowing down. You've probably seen this tracking deer or elk or whatever. Like he's weaving,
Sure.
he's slowing down. And then, okay, he's circled back. He's probably did a button hook and is in here. And sure enough, there's a lion right there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But like when they're out there, specifically like after the shot, and a lot of PHs like get good at it, right? Just from reps and hearing. The biggest difference, and I'm in no way taken away from what these guys do, but they have substrates often that are really conducive to.
Yeah.
When you're in Limpopo, which is the northeast region, which is like, if you just book a random one, 95% you're going to Limpopo.
Yeah.
It's basically all like kind of a fine sand over a harder layer, which just shows prints super well.
Yeah, I got you.
You can almost read a fingerprint off it, right? So that helps. And then when you're in the rockier areas, you're looking for pinpricks of blood or like a kicked up rock and stuff like that.
Sure.
It gets a little trickier, but yeah, just everyone over there, and it just goes back to what you're saying, man. It's just reps, right?
Sure.
They kind of learn the moves and have their reps, but all that to say, if you're going over there, like I was super concerned about wounding loss because, what I said on my first trip, I think I shot 5 animals. I was like, all right, if I think back, lifetime career bow hunting, 20% wounding loss, like that wouldn't be ridiculous, right?
No, that's like decent.
Yeah,
good.
and especially for me starting out, let me tell you. But like you look at it, and I'm going, man, I'm going to end up paying that in, paying for that animal, and
like, you're factoring that in.
That's going to be a real bummer. And I got over there, and I did have one that, he was a little further, and I hit him a little low. We put a dog on it, had that thing in no time, right? So like, they will work very hard to find your animal. Knock on wood, I've not shot an animal in Africa that I haven't recovered. And if that's something that's like concerning you, it's just like, be at ease. Like they're very good at this. Very good at finding stuff. So.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That would be cool just to see that.
Yeah.
Really, Joe, I think here in the States, and I'm not an exception to this. I think that our culture is like really, like the hunting culture is really weak on tracking animals. You know what I mean?
I would agree.
I think there's some challenges, like a lot of places it's just hard. Like if you don't have blood, there's no tracks.
Well, and also you don't get reps, man. If you don't get reps, and this is something you do, let's say you shoot an animal, like if you're a really good elk hunter, you're killing one, every other year on like public land OTC, like you are a stone cold killer if you're killing one every, okay. 3/4 of the time it works well. So that means once every 8 years, you're gone tracking.
Right.
Like, I guess I'm contributing to the problem because I have a tracking dog, and she's also a house pet. She's not just for that, but I trained her to track. Fantastic. Also has been the worst thing for me developing my tracking skills. So I'm like, someone go get Stella. We put her on the blood. It's like wherever she goes, you follow her, and she's licking a dead deer.
That's awesome though. I think that's better than not having a dog and just like not. It's a weird joke because there's not even within. Dude, my dad was a hunting guy. My dad was an outfitter. There was never like a lot of tracking knowledge transferred to me.
Yeah.
And to this day, dude, like, because I guide so much archery and then my other stuff, like I'll track probably like 5 wounded animals. When I say like track, I'm saying like I'm on blood like 80 yards or 100 yards beyond where they were hit. So 4 or 5 animals a year. I think that's a lot in the States. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I'm sure
For your
there's,
average dude, that's a lot.
yeah, and so that's but still to this day, man, like there's things I've learned over time, like on elk, a lot of times, like my ability to project where I think the bull might have gone has gotten a whole hell of a lot better. You know what I mean? Like those little things. But I still, every time I'm tracking a wounded archery elk, I feel like a freaking amateur, you know?
It's not a good feeling, man. And I
No,
mean, when you're the guy, you probably have a little less of that like tinge of regret going through you as me as the archer or whatever. But when you're out there too, I mean, yeah, it's tough, right? But one thing I will say that I've learned in having my family's place in Oklahoma, I take a ton of archery hunters. I take some novices.
sure.
I've been on a lot of blood trails that have not gone the way we want them to, right? And also non-blood trails, right? Like I've seen a lot of deer shot with bows. If you think that, maybe you saw it go and go down and it's still alive or whatever, if you can get out of there, I mean, this is my opinion, you may disagree, like get out, he will probably be there in the morning.
Sure.
If you push that blood, and especially you see him jump and you see it running away, it's like you're not running him down. I mean, I've done it a couple times, but that's like seriously wounded whitetails.
Yeah.
You're not doing it with an elk in the mountains. It's just
No.
like you got to get out, like mark where you are, calm down, and come back with good light. It's just so many times people are like, should we back out, whatever, and we're like, let's go, and we take
Sure.
the dog or whatever, and you just bump it, and you're never finding it, right? And so like, don't be afraid to back out, man, because it like if it's dead to where you're gonna find it by going right now, it's gonna be there in the morning.
Yeah.
Just
No, I agree. And every circumstance is different, man. So it's like you got to make a call on it. But I tend to lean that way too. The one thing that I've noticed, man, I think that distorts it even worse, is that everybody's bumped an animal if they've done much tracking and had that moment of like, oh fuck, we made like the wrong choice,
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of situations where people start tracking and even if they're loud, like they're talking to each other or they're just like walking along, sometimes these bulls will get up and walk off. Like we observe them crashing away when we jump them. What we don't observe is that a bull hears us from 200 yards and he's hurting and he's like fuck and he's threatened by that and then he just starts walking.
Sneaking.
Whereas if you would have just left him, he would have just stood there. He would have just stood there trying to figure out what the hell happened and maybe bedded down or whatever,
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting subject. I wish I was better at it, and I wish I was better at it, and I think I'm above average.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Well, no, if there was like a theme of this whole, conversation we're having, it's reps, right?
Sure.
And we're talking about this as if like going over there and shooting these animals isn't the most fun you can have.
Yeah. That's like it's just like, it's not like it's not fun. Totally.
Yeah. And
totally.
Being able to suit it to every budget, and get guys out there. And I mean, again, obviously, like I'm slightly biased. I think, and one of the reasons I agreed to work with Donnie is I'm a big believer in kind of the way this outfit runs. But being able to set up like really bespoke packages and figure out, hey, why are you coming? What do you want, right? If you're a collector and you just want stuff for the wall, and we have a guy like that who's about to go over there, and we've just been talking to him, and like every 2 weeks, he's like, what about this? What about that, right?
Sure.
And like, sure, man, we'll find one and get it in there. But we've got great scouting. We kind of know these general areas and can get you set up for whatever that goal is. And again, if that goal is like, I want to pull that trigger on my release a lot, perfect. Like we can help you out, and it will be a fraction of the cost of doing it, even in like Texas. I mean, we can get that cost per animal in the range of like shooting pigs or something over here
sure.
in the States, and it's also just, it's a cool experience to go over there and do new stuff. Right. So,
right. On the budget side of things, man, like if a guy wants to go do it, I mean, and I know this is like a totally open-ended question, but a guy's going to go over for 7 or 8 days. Like what's a real budget? And you could even ballpark like the travel and everything. Can a guy do it for $15,000 and like bring a couple animals back, or is it really like a $20,000 thing? Like what's the rough number you think?
Well, when you get into bringing animals back, that's where things get wildly variable. I know a guy who had, do you know what sable antelope are? You seen them? Black, big, long horns. That
oh, yeah, sure.
Anyways, they're like 600 pounds, right? He had 2 full body mounts done over there and shipped them back. Like, obviously, he paid more for that than like
the trip,
the hunt for those 2, right? So you got that going on. If you're not going for insane trophy quality, like if you called me and said, Joe, I want to shoot an SCI top 5, damn near anything, I can be like, all right, as long as we got a few months and we can tell all our guides to start scouting for it.
Yeah, sure.
They're not working. We'll find you a monster of about anything. That's kind of like one of the things we pride ourselves on too. But if you're not doing that, if you're open to shooting kind of a broad range of stuff, we can get your entire hunt done for, 7-8 days. Let's just go with that one that I said. This is a pretty dang good package, but it's 10 animals, 7 days, basically everything included with us for like 14 and change. Okay.
I got you.
Call it 15. You're going to do some tips, so maybe you're in the 16, 17 range there.
Yeah.
But if you shop around a little, 1,200 round trip. Okay. That can be literally all of it. Right now, you're going to want to do taxidermy, bring some of the stuff back. That particular package has kudu, Nyala, gemsbuck in it. Like,
sure.
The stuff that you see high up on the wall at Bass Pro that you like, the little kid is standing there like gawking at, right? And I was that little kid, man. Like, that stuff a lot of times is I know so many people who've said like, I'm just not going to bring it back.
Yeah,
right?
and then they can't leave it.
They're oh man, I can't not. So some of that stuff, there's different ways to do it. The good news is that cost is like distributed on the back end, depending on how you do it, right? So I'm doing my stuff mounted over there. It just labor rates, time and materials, energy, like everything is way cheaper over there. Sure. You pay a little more on shipping it back, but pretty much what you're getting, because when it goes in that crate, it's not decaying at all, right? That dip and pack stuff, you are still shipping a green hide. There was a case a little while ago where people in California, and hopefully you don't live in California, but like stuff is getting shipped back to you, and basically it's got to clear customs at the airport or at the shipping dock or whatever. Normally, if you're doing dip and pack, you have to airship it too, because it's not fully preserved yet.
Sure.
You get that done, and in California, they were using that like as a political pawn, right? They're super anti-trophy hunting. They're like, well, no, we're not going to clear this shit, right? And so it sat there.
It's stuck.
And I've heard a story of a leopard, which is not a cheap hunt, right? He's sitting there and he's just waiting, and the leopard, the hair slipped on the fur, right?
Oh,
and so
geez.
The taxidermist did his best, right? But all that stuff's going. So there's a lot of good taxidermists over there, and we can, if someone has questions about this, you can talk to me. I can tell you who I use.
Yeah, sure.
But like, there's online portals. You can see up-to-date stuff. They're running like 150-man taxidermy shops over there. Whereas here, I'm in Houston, which has a big port, so it's a big city for doing this. Like the big taxidermy shop I know of has like 6 guys, and 2 of them are part-time.
Yeah.
So,
it's like it's a different world. But the reality is like it's good for people to know that the taxidermy is like an open-ended thing. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and you don't have to. And also, like, if you really were going to be super lean on it, you can have them do cool stuff like kudu horns, polish up real cool, or they also like, see this whitetail buck back here. You can't pull those antlers off, right? Well, a kudu, you can just slide that antler right off.
Oh, sure.
Like a sheep or a pronghorn or something. So they'll do that. They'll cut it, and then you can mount it back on. So when you ship, you can ship whatever 8 kudu heads in a box that's like, maybe
I gotcha.
Has a little depth to it. Stack the skulls, stack the horns, and go. So if you're just doing euros, and these animals, they all have like unique horns.
Sure.
They're pretty euros. They're cool looking things. Or have someone paint it, or they'll have like a old lady who likes carving the skulls or whatever. You can get creative.
Yeah.
And you can do that, man, and only be a few $100 into each skull or whatever in taxidermy.
Right.
$250, you can get it, cleaned and bleached, and then carved or whatever, or stained.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah, there's options for guys if they
back, and that's going to keep your cost way down on the shipping back too. So that marginal cost, if you're truly going like we talked about, that guy who really just wants reps. Yeah, say you're open to shooting some cow wildebeest, or there's people who come and shoot 2-3 cow buffalo. just because they're not super concerned about the trophy, but they still want like the Black Death hunt experience.
Oh, sure.
And so you can do stuff like that and really cut those costs down. So, all in, if you did like super lean taxidermy, just got some skulls and stuff, yeah, 20 grand is going to get you 10 animals in a week of hunting and everything back. But also, if you take out some of the fluff and whatnot, and we can 100% get you over hunted and back for, 8 to 10 grand. Right. But then it like I said, it comes down to taxidermy, right?
Yeah. Which is
vary.
to your point. It's like it's kind of on the person. You know what I mean? What you want to do. It's such an interesting. That in itself is an interesting topic, man.
Yeah, it could be a 2-hour podcast, man.
Yeah,
right?
well, and it's like, dude, I'm not a taxidermy guy, but there's like some little caveman way deep in my soul who's like drawing paintings of himself hunting because. It's hard for me, dude. Like I have a weird lifestyle where I move around all the time.
Sure.
All my shit that I've killed, like I got dozens of bear skulls and lion. I got a full body mountain lion, like at a friend's place. Like I have all this shit spread out all over the place, and it's still hard for me not to continue to do it. And I don't have like in the house I'm in right now, dude. There's not. There's a couple elk. I have a bunch of hides and stuff. I have some of those around, but I have none of it in my house. And still, dude, I have a hard time like not doing something with it, Yeah. So
my last trip, we saw this kudu, and I was like, man, that's like a nice looking kudu. And I'd already killed a very nice one.
Sure.
And I was talking to Donnie, and it was like not on the list of stuff to kill on this trip, right? And I was like, we got to go, right? And it was like kind of sickly looking. He like called the landowner and was like, hey man, you got this one? He's like kind of bony. We work out a deal. It's like, all right, whatever, knock off 500. I was like, that's all I needed, right? So I get over there. As we're going, I'm like, I'm just going to Euro mount this one, or I'm going to do like the polished horns or whatever, like we said. And I zip an arrow through it, and we're stoked, where I'm crawling, like draw the bow, stand up, drawn, smoke it. Like I'm so stoked. Kudu's one of the ones they said was impossible spot in stock. I've heard everybody say that. And we did it. And we get over there, and the horns have just like this intense character, and like real deep ridges and secondary growth. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, we're mounting it. Like you just, there's something in my soul that like it's so hard not to sometimes,
Yeah.
So it's cool.
No, for sure, dude.
It's everybody who I talk to, and I'm like, yeah, I went to Africa. They all immediately are like, when's your stuff coming back? Like non-hunters, like they want to see that stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just in us. Even if you don't hunt, like it's so cool to look at it and be like, oh.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, it's like it's part of the whole story. You know what I mean? And there's something that if you don't have it, dude, it's kind of cool. I mean, I've had a couple buddies in my life, and I'll never have a giant, trophy room in my house or whatever.
Right.
But I've had a few clients and friends that have had those, and it's cool. Like if I just go into one, Joe, I'm not that enthused by it. I mean, part of that is because I'm like living the hunting world. And dude, I have to laugh at myself because right when I said I don't have any taxidermy in my house, this is a bear rug behind.
I don't want to call you out.
Like, what are you talking about? And I just like saw I'm looking at you and I saw like my video off the side. I'm like, oh, I'm such an idiot. There's a freaking bear rug behind me. But anyways, it's not that interesting if you're not with the guy who did the hunts. But if you're with the guy who did the hunts, it's really cool to walk through those. You know what I mean? And hear like every story about every hunt. So I very much, even though I'm not a big taxidermy guy, I can very much appreciate that scene, man.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who say there's a running joke, man. It's like, I'm only going to Africa once, so I'm just gonna, sure, man. And then like come back and price out everything else, and then like look at the amount of fun you had for that cost over there, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons it's so big in Texas. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of hunters here, but this is a land of like not a lot of public land, not a lot of great opportunity on the public land that does exist. And then you start looking at a lease. If you have a big deer lease in Texas, and you probably share it with 10 other people, skip it for 2 years, come with me, we'll load you up.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of the pricing situation, just where the market is here. Yeah. So, and I mean, to me, I always say like every hunt is tough for some reason. right? There's no
Sure.
hunt that's cheap, easy, high success, big animals. Like it's just, you don't hit them all.
Sure.
And for me, like part of this is the travel, right? And yeah, I could pay whatever, $100 more and like fly direct from Atlanta, but that's like part of the adventure, right? Is like locking in and going and doing that. And I realize that's not for everyone. And there's a lot of people there who fly first class direct and, you know,
Sure.
get
Get it over with.
But to me, it's like, that's part of it. And that's part of the tale. And, you know, you get over there and I like going around and going to different areas and, you know, seeing some of these little villages you go through. And it's so different, right? I mean, as you know, even just from like Puerto Rico is kind of a slightly different world from whatever.
Sure.
LA. Well, it's like that times 10 or whatever. And so it's cool to like dive in a little bit and kind of like appreciate that, you know?
Yeah, no, that's part of the adventure, dude. Good stuff, man. Joe, is there anything that we need to cover, dude, that we didn't cover?
I think we're good, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I mean, it just, if I like were to throw one thing out there, it's like, don't write it off, man. For the longest time, I just thought that was kind of like a really elite rich man's game. And I was like getting to the point in my life. I was like, all right, I'll pay for some tags or, you know, go hunt Alaska or go do this elk hunt, that elk hunt. Cool, man. By all means, do that. But if you have any interest whatsoever in going over there, or if you're looking to get the reps, I mean, give me a call. It's like zero obligation. You can find me on Instagram or whatever, and I'll share that.
Where give people your contact info, man, where they can follow you.
Yeah, the best thing would be Instagram, Joey, Joey .bluewater, BLUEWATER. You'll find me there. It'll be incredibly obvious that it's the right guy because there'll be a bunch of pictures of Africans. And then you can scroll back and see back when I used to fish. But then also if you're an email guy, Joe, Joe at AfricanBowhuntingAdventures.com. All run together. And that email address will work as well. But, you know, just reach out. And even if you don't end up going with me, even if you're a rifle hunter, you know, and you're interested in that, I always say that doing this is awesome because I get to talk about and plan trips with people all the time. And I can't afford to go on 40 trips a year, but I get 40 people about doing it, you know? So yeah, I love getting people over there. It's such a unique and cool experience. So.
Yeah, dude, selling hunts is fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think people, it's funny because you spend so much time on the phone if you're in the business of selling hunts. And I think people always think like they're like taking your time up, you know?
No, this is what I'd rather be doing than anything right now.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's fun to bullshit with guys about hunting, you know, even guys you don't know, particularly as you get like more and more experience and you can kind of I don't know like kind of how you look at it, but I got when I was selling elk hunts, man, I could tell how the guy should elk hunt, where he should go, when he should go within 5 minutes of talking to him.
Yeah.
You know, because you get everybody is going to there's, you know, I mean, let's be honest, like most hunters are men, most of them have an ego, most of them want to project like something to you as the guide, use the outfitter or whatever, which is totally normal. But you get to the truth pretty quick once you've sold thousands of hunts, because you know exactly what really, what this individual is actually really looking for, what they would enjoy or whatever. I think that's fun, man.
Yeah, and having, you know, gone with a couple different guys, I do talk to some U.S. reps who, I mean, frankly, in my personal opinion, like kind of have no business doing it. I don't even know how they got hooked up with these guys, but I've been over with a couple different outfits. Like I've experienced it, kind of getting over there, the logistics, whatever. I can talk you through bow hunting. If you're a rifle guy and you think that, you know, hey, a crossbow's fun to experience a lot of this like up close Joe's talking about, we can help you with that too. But also just like in general, the openness, because there's another world over there, literally, right? You talked about like projecting like, oh, well, I'm hiring a guide. You come with us. It's illegal to hunt without a guide. You can't hunt in Africa without a PH. So we got your excuse covered right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But
yeah. No, that's it's awesome, dude. Well, dude, hey, I appreciate your time, man. And I recommend everybody check it out. And I'm gonna get with you, dude. We'll set it up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you over there, man. It's I think you're gonna have a blast. So
good deal, dude. Thanks, Joe.
Cool, man. Yep. Have a good one. Bye now.
If you enjoyed this content, do me a huge favor. Subscribe on whatever platform you consume it on. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever works for you guys. Everything else is on my website, pursuitwithcliff.com. Go there and it's going to be very apparent to you that I work my ass off just to not have a real job. All the hunts I guide, all the seminars I put on, all the unique experiences I offer, and the membership site, all the details are there.